like you were mentioning the verse in the Quran about beating and these things. And just to kind of quickly summarize this verse, it's really interesting because this verse starts off by saying, it's chapter 4 verse 34. It says, وَإِنْ خِفْتُمْ نُشُوزُهُنَّ فَعِذُوهُنَّ وَهْجُرُوهُنَّ فِي الْمَضَاجِعِ وَاضْرِبُوهُنَّ. So وَإِنْ أَطَعْنَكُمْ فَلَا تَبَغُوا عَلَيْهِنَّ سَبِيلًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, if you fear their nushuz, i.e. your wives, nushuz is rebellion, and it can take different forms. Now, the first thing I would say to someone who's asking this question is as follows, really. I mean, I would say to someone, let's say for example, who is, I'm not going to say a feminist, or someone who believes in women's rights, anyone, right? Say to them, do you believe that in all cases, a man, a husband, can never touch a woman against her will? In all cases, absolutely all cases. She might say, yeah, I don't believe in any case it's justified for a woman to touch her husband against his will. A husband to touch her wife against her will in any physical way. So I'll say, okay, fine. What if she's killing the child or endangering the child's health in a dramatic way? And by the way, this is not an anomalous example, because if you find the NSPCC, which is a British charity which deals with children's health and things like that, it actually reported that the majority of fatalities or deaths of children are from women, not because the women are worse than men or more evil than men, or as the Bible indicates in Genesis, but it's actually because women have more interaction time with their children. Generally speaking, as mothers have more interaction time with their children. So this is actually a real case study. If we see a mother, because we're here looking at the philosophical or epistemological roots, if you see a mother, if a husband sees his wife abusing the child, is he allowed to intervene and physically touch a woman against her will? Yeah, the feminists will turn around and say, yeah, probably. We're not objecting to that. Say, fine. So now we have to understand that we've broken the original thing that we've said, because originally we said that absolutely no, there is no case in which a man can touch a woman against her will. So, but then the woman will say, okay, well, but that's an exceptional circumstance. We say, all right. So you're saying in certain exceptional circumstances, husbands can touch a woman physically against her will. That's very interesting. Say if she's hitting him, she's attacking him in a violent way which could cause harm, because women, despite popular stereotypical understanding, might be weaker than men physically, but they're not completely incapable of hurting a man. So say for example she grabs a weapon, or she physically tries to attack him. Is he allowed to defend himself and physically touch her against her will in that context? So let's say a fair-minded feminist will say, yeah, okay, he can do as much as it needs, as he needs, in order to get her off him. So I would say that if that is the case, then we've agreed already. And then say, why is that? Why have we agreed? So, well, the reason why we've agreed is actually because this verse is not telling a man how to beat up his wife. It's not. In fact, the Prophet explicitly told us in a hadith in Tirmidhi, لا تضربوا إماء الله. Do not hit the women's servants of Allah. Do not hit them. So if anyone says, okay, well, Islam's normative position is to go and hit the wives to discipline them or something, this is against the Quranic and Islamic or Hadith narrative. This verse is not telling a man how to hit or beat up his wife. This is telling how a man or a husband how to defend himself against his wife. Because the thing is, the nature of man is that a man is prone to, in a more biological, predetermined way, to a kind of aggressive behavior. So this Quranic injunction, these 3 steps, warn, abstain from sexual intercourse, and then you can apply daraba, which we can explain later on, or I've already explained in a couple of videos of mine, which maybe I don't want to descope this discussion. Then you can do this, right? So someone might argue that, how comes it's not mentioned, this word is not mentioned in relation to women? I would say actually it is mentioned in relation to women, the same word. In chapter 4, I think verse 126 or 128, it says, وَإِنِ امْرَأَةٌ خَافَتْ مِنْ بَعْلِهَا نُشُوزًا أَوْ إِعْرَاضًا فَلَا جُنَاحَ عَلَيْهِمَا أَن يَصَلَّحَ بَيْنَهُمَا صُلْحًا وَصُلْحُ خَيْرٌ. It says that if a woman fears from her husband nushuz or i'rad. I'rad means being neglected. So there's 2 things. Whereas in the verse in 434, there's only one thing that was mentioned, which was nushuz, which was rebellion. Here there are 2 things that are mentioned. Then she can start a reconciliation with her husband, and she can start a reconciliation, and she actually has a right at any point to go to a qadi. She has a right to or a judge. if there's actually any damage done to her, she can get a divorce instantaneously. Any actual physical damage. We're not talking about, something which is not substantive, or something which is not real, or whatever it may be, or he hurt her when he was rolling in the bed when he was sleeping or something like this. No, we're talking about some serious stuff. Then at any point, she could actually start a reconciliation process. She could start a case against him. The question will be made now, so why is it the case that with a man is mentioned, Daraba is mentioned, which is a kind of physical recourse, and it's not mentioned with a woman? The answer is because men are physically more prone to violence, and so there needed to be some kind of refining or a cap put on what a man's normative or default position would otherwise be anyways. And number two is because if that same injunction was used for a woman, it would put her in a disadvantageous position, because actually if a woman initiates something physical with a man and the man responds in what he would in many cases perceive as self-defense, then she'd be put in a disadvantageous position in which he can harm her physically. So really the Quranic discourse is not one. Generally speaking, we believe in the general equality, but there are certain situations where we believe that actually a man has a certain right over a woman, and a woman sometimes has a certain right over a man, like in the custody of children, like as mothers, she's 3 times more important than the man, like in mahr, which is a dowry, like in many cases in divorce, she can preoccupy the house he lives in for 3 months. It's his house, but she has to stay there. There's so many things we can actually list that a woman has a right over a man in, and the opposite is also true in Islam. So there are some exceptional circumstances. And by the way, this is not even against Western society, because frankly, Western civilization has made exceptions for women in certain things. Maternity leave, the army. There's been so many drafts for men to go to the army. There's no all women draft in the history of America, really, but there's been all women armies. So there's so many things here we can say. But the point is, in a nutshell, a lot of these misconceptions is because they're approaching the Quran with their lenses, right? And if they want to have a genuine understanding of the Quran, they have to understand the Quran from what it's telling us rather than what we're trying to superimpose on it.